Good evening, seekers of the shrouded truth. I am Victor Ravenswood, here to peel back the veneer of the mundane and gaze into the abyss of the unknown. Tonight, our journey takes us to a quiet hamlet on Long Island, to a house where the American dream bled into a nightmare. Welcome to Amityville. In the crisp autumn of 1974, the serene streets of Amityville were stained by a horror of such brutality that it clawed at the very essence of our understanding of evil. The DeFeo family, asleep in their beds, became the tragic prologue to a saga that has since chilled the marrow of the collective spine. But it was in the grim aftermath, when the Lutz family crossed the threshold of 112 Ocean Avenue, that the legend of the Amityville Horror truly began to writhe and whisper in the darkness. They sought paradise, a new chapter, unaware that some chapters refused to be closed. In the days to follow, a malignant presence, born from the blood-soaked soil beneath, began to insinuate itself into the fabric of their lives. It whispered through the halls, an insidious echo of the atrocity that transpired within those walls. The Lutz's dream home bore a hidden cellar of secrets, doors that slammed shut of their own volition, odious stenches from unseen sources, and an invisible hand that chilled to the touch. Prepare yourselves, my companions, for tonight we walk the haunted halls of Amityville, where the boundaries of reality are as thin as the veil between life and death. What awaits is a tale of a family ensnarled by a haunting so profound that their only reprieve was an abandonment, leaving all but the memories behind. The Lutz family, George and Kathy, with their 3 young children, entered their new home with hearts alight with hope. Yet, as the moving trucks departed and their new life began to unfurl, so did an array of phenomena that would challenge the very sinews of their sanity. It started as mere ripples in the calm of their domestic bliss, a misplaced item, a fleeting shadow in the periphery of vision. But the house, with its gambrel roof and eye-like windows, watched, and its secrets began to creep through the cracks. Night fell, and with it the whispers started, a conspiratorial murmur between the walls, soft enough to question, yet persistent. George found himself waking at 3:15 a.m., night after night, the witching hour, the precise time the DeFeo murders were believed to have occurred. Why this involuntary vigil? A spectral residue, or merely the echoes of a troubled mind? The children's laughter was soon tinged with unease as they spoke of unseen friends and shadows that danced at the corners of their eyes. Kathy felt unseen presences brushing past her, leaving trails of gooseflesh and dread. A chill settled over the house, a cold that the blaze of the hearth could not abate. With every creaking step upon the staircase, with each inexplicable cold draft, the family's initial skepticism waned, giving way to a creeping realization that they were not alone. The pungent smell of decay would waft through the rooms without source, a perfume of the damned. Green gelatinous slime oozed inexplicably from the keyholes, and an unseen force vandalized their holy objects, as if an invisible maw gnawed at the sanctity of the home. But it was the room that the family dog, Harry, refused to approach, barking at with a primal terror. The Red Room, a hidden space found behind a shelving unit in the basement, painted a chilling shade of red, where the air felt thick with malevolence. What had occurred within those blood-colored walls? What secrets did it keep? The haunting intensified, preying on the Lutz's every waking moment and disturbing their slumber. Nightmares plagued them, each more vivid and violent than the last. It was as though the house fed upon their fear, growing bolder with its malevolence. And then came the flies, swarms of them, defying the dead of winter, congregating in the sewing room, buzzing heralds of decay and death. How could such vermin thrive in the bitter cold? What did they seek within these haunted walls? As the days passed, the Lutz family found themselves not only inhabitants of 112 Ocean Avenue, but also prisoners of its past, ensnarled in a web woven from the very threads of horror itself. The house demanded more than they were willing to give, and the time to seek aid was upon them. There comes a moment in every tale of terror when the crescendo of fear peaks, when the veil between worlds grows thin, and the darkness seeps through. For the Lutz family, this moment arrived with an intensity that would haunt their every subsequent breath. As the clock hands joined to mark the witching hour, a symphony of horrors began. George and Kathy, awoken by an oppressive force, witnessed the very fabric of the reality tear at the seams. The air grew dense, charged with a malevolence that turned each breath into a gasp. The house convulsed with phantasmal energy. The children, asleep, were spared the waking nightmare but tossed and turned as if chased in their dreams. Inanimate objects took on a semblance of life, moving of their own volition, guided by an unseen hand. The walls, once thought to hold the promise of protection, began to ooze a black, viscous substance. It was as if the house bled from wounds unseen, wounds inflicted in a time before, when evil was done and left to fester. From the bowels of the home, the howls of their beloved dog Harry rose in a cacophony of terror, a stark counterpoint to the ungodly silence that fell upon the human occupants. It was a sound that spoke of an ancient fear, a primal recognition of an apex predator. Then the very air before them rippled, a gateway to an abyss, as shadowy forms slithered at the periphery of their vision. Figures, human in shape yet devoid of humanity, flickered through the hallways, their intentions as dark as the void from which they hailed. It was in this theater of the damned that the Lutzes experienced the paroxysm of their haunting, a crescendo of supernatural ferocity that would drive them from their home, fleeing into the night, leaving behind their earthly possessions, fleeing an unnameable horror that refused to be cast out. And when the dawn finally pierced the night shroud, it revealed an empty house on Ocean Avenue, a house that held within its walls the echoes of terror, a terror that had etched itself into the very soul of the Amityville legend. In the cold light of morning, as the sun rose over the quiet town of Amityville, it cast long shadows behind the now deserted house at 112 Ocean Avenue. The Lutz family, their lives uprooted by terror, could not bear to cross the threshold again. They sought refuge from the unseen siege they had endured, leaving behind not only possessions, but the very fragments of their peace. The weeks that followed unraveled into a tapestry of confusion and controversy. Skeptics and believers alike descended upon the story of the Lutz family's 28-day ordeal. The haunting of Amityville ignited a firestorm of media attention, sparking debates that would burn for decades. The house was examined, dissected by psychics, and scrutinized by skeptics. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren stepped into the fray, their findings only fueling the inferno of fascination and fear. They spoke of demonic presences, of land tainted by tragedy, of a house that was, in their words, a conduit for supernatural forces. But with the passage of time, a different narrative began to weave itself into the story's fabric. Accusations of hoaxes and profit-seeking emerged, clashing with the steadfast convictions of those who had experienced the house's embrace. The Amityville Horror became a legend, a specter hanging over the world of paranormal, a legend kept alive through books, through films, and through the fervent whispers of those who dare believe. And yet, despite the years, despite the relentless tide of doubt and debunking, the tale endures. For some, the Amityville house remains a dark monument to the supernatural, a place where the veil between worlds is thin and spirits tread. For others, it is a case study in hysteria, and the power of suggestion and the human penchant for storytelling. The true legacy of Amityville is not in the answers it might provide, but in the questions it continues to inspire. It serves as a mirror, reflecting our own fears, our own beliefs, our own inner hauntings. And so we draw the curtains on this chilling chapter of Chronicles of the Cryptic. I leave you to ponder the nature of belief, the potency of fear, and the possibility that within every home there might lurk stories yet untold, awaiting the right moment to be awakened. Until our next encounter with the unexplainable, I am Victor Ravenswood, your guide through the veiled passages of time and terror. Remember, the past may pass, but its echoes may never truly be silenced. Good night, and may serenity find you, even in the darkest of hours.